From Mixified Studio A, this is Around Midnight with the Local Boys. I am Joe Carbonetta. I've got Chevelle Devine, Todd Fluker. How are you guys doing tonight?
Every time. He's busy with his clipboards and everything else besides bringing our mics up.
Awesome, thanks. I needed them both.
True stereo sound. Or is it? Who knows with podcasts these days?
I don't know what to say to that.
Get our sound all squelched.
Squelched?
Like, pay all this good money for these good microphones, and then you gotta squelch it all up.
I have no idea what he's saying. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'm thinking CB when he says squelch. I'm like,
breaker,
I don't get it. What are you talking about?
So,
Round midnight.
how have you guys been?
Oh, it's been an exhilarating week, month, year.
How so?
I'm just trying to make conversation.
I thought
kind of business as usual.
I thought you had some kind of great story to go with this.
Not particularly, no. It's just, just the usual.
That's disappointing. What about you, Todd?
Maxing, relaxing.
Chilling, all cool.
Did he just go back to the 80s?
Playing some b-ball outside of school.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
So a couple
That was
of
90s.
guys.
That was 90s? Yeah.
They were up to
I guess
no good.
good. Started making trouble in my neighborhood.
Got in one little fight?
Yeah. Yo, homie, I'll smell you later. Anyway, moving right along.
More like jumping ahead. That's like 3 verses up.
Okay. And it just never ends. What I was gonna say is, of course, if you haven't been living under a rock, and evidently Chevelle does that because we were discussing some stories in the news that he had no clue about, but there's no way that you could miss the school shootings that have been all over.
I deliberately do not watch news. The only reason I heard about it is because, as usual, people get all up in a tizzy whenever Trump opens his mouth.
What? Okay, I mean, Trump definitely figures into this, but we were starting out by simply saying that there have been the school shootings. You are aware of these, right?
I heard something.
Okay. What about you, Todd?
Oh, yeah. I was just watching some videos earlier today. I mean, there's so much news every day. There's something different about this particular incident coming out.
Uh-huh.
There's the students from the or victims of the shooting that were all over the media here and there, or they've been making the stops all over the place. The one young lady, I believe her name was Ellen Gonzalez or something like that. I gotta look that up. But yeah, she had a very powerful speech talking about the, calling for the need for gun control and kind of addressing what people have been telling them, because they have been victims of this school shooting, but then afterwards they have kind of been victim blamed, as they're calling it, that people are telling armchair quarterbacking, like, oh, there's so much stuff you could have done to avoid this. Oh, you should have realized this guy was mentally unstable. Oh, but then on the other hand, you also shouldn't have shunned him. If he didn't feel so shunned, maybe he wouldn't have snapped. Oh, and you should have told someone that this mentally unstable person was around your neighborhood, and maybe if you had reported it, this would have
isn't that weird? Because you have somebody that clearly everybody is ignoring, so nobody knows about this person, and everybody's supposed to know that this person that nobody knows about is this. Isn't that kind of a catch-22?
And yet apparently it was not a secret that this kid was mentally unhinged.
Secret.
And they had reported several times. Even his own mother had reported him.
And
so
that's where I have a problem.
Before she died.
That's true. Before she died.
Here's the thing, and this is going to get to this is actually key to my point on gun control.
Uh-huh.
You report, and nothing gets done until somebody goes in and goes off. and then all of a sudden, oh, somebody should have done something. They tried to do something. Nobody listened.
Yeah, well, the FBI has already admitted that they dropped the ball on this. More recently, and I mean within like the last 12 to 14 hours, there have been questions raised about the police department in the area and how they handled the fact that this kid was a known issue. The biggest one so far is, as it turns out now, the campus security officer who was armed and apparently is actually part of the police department did not attempt to engage the suspect in the middle of this rampage. He waited outside for more than 4 minutes while this kid just shot up the school.
And I was wondering about that myself, because, yeah, that's the big story of the day, is that this guy he's being labeled a coward by everyone. But, I mean, it's human nature. It's a very dangerous situation. Are you going to throw yourself? Do you really have the mettle? I don't know. He is a officer, and he is trained, but...
And he was armed.
Does that essentially mean he's battle-hardened and ready to throw his life away?
One would assume so. One would expect so.
No,
let me finish. Here's the flip side of this.
What
about the teachers that did put themselves in harm's way and did pay the ultimate price, and they weren't armed and they weren't battle-hardened? They weren't anything except educators, and yet they had the moxie, the gall, the bravery, the heroism to go in and put their lives on the line to save these children, while the guy with the gun and the training sat on the sidelines.
But that guy, I mean,
the quote,
number one,
good
I'm
guy
not gonna,
with guns
I'm not gonna,
that the NRA
no,
touting.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
Why?
do that.
That's exactly what happened.
No, don't do that. No, listen.
This good guy with a gun sat on his ass.
No, listen.
Okay.
He's Barney Fife. He's got the revolver with the one bullet. Okay? Not everybody's going to charge out there going Rambo. And, if you're not in some major city where you're dealing with this kind of thing every single day, you're not really prepared for that. So unless this guy is like a 5-tour veteran from the Middle East, he's not going to go charging into there. And that's actually part of the problem with the officers that do go charging in, is they're battle hardened and they get real quick to pull the trigger. In this case, it may have been a good thing. Maybe it wouldn't be. But you can't just say because you had a gun, you should have done something. Just like you can't say because you didn't have a gun, you should not do something. There are a lot of people who say the teacher should not have jumped in front of it.
It's not just that the guy had a gun, because that's like saying...
The fact that he stood out there and didn't go in. I get all of that.
Wait. And that's like saying that Todd... Let's say, okay, now this is a stretch, I know, because we know where Todd comes down on this. But let's just say that Todd had a license to carry a concealed firearm, but he's just Todd. Would he have run in there and done that? I don't know. And if he didn't, would we be vilifying him? Maybe, maybe not. But this guy with the gun... Wait, let me finish. This guy with the gun was a trained police, a sworn peace officer.
But
that was his job.
Where was he?
You knew that it's like Super Chicken. You knew the job was dangerous when you took it.
No, you didn't.
You put on the badge. You put on the
didn't.
gun. You know that you're putting on a target, and that's the job.
I think a lot
being
of people...
a police officer in Mayberry PD is not the same as being LAPD Metro. It's a different thing.
No, we're talking Florida here, not Mayberry.
It's a different thing. Florida is backwards in a lot of places. So if this is not downtown Miami-Dade County action, it's going to be the same situation. It's that way in some of the, I would expect it because of who I am. I'm not going to expect Temple City PD. Well, they're sheriffs, so yeah, they might.
Where are you going with this?
I'm trying to find an example, but California is a different kind of place.
Yeah, this guy was a sheriff.
Yeah, but where is he?
Again, he's likening this to Mayberry. And
where is he? Is this guy in a major metropolitan urban area?
I'm sorry, but
is the guy in a major metropolitan urban area?
You know what? Whether you're in Los Angeles or Miami or Keokuk, Iowa, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't. If you put on the badge,
what you should
that's
do
your
is
job.
fine. Yeah, you're right. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that not everybody. You have the same thing that happens actually in actual wars, where you put somebody out on the front line and the bullets start flying and they freeze.
The difference is that in those situations, those people got drafted. This guy wasn't drafted.
Not even people
he volunteered to become a cop.
Not even people that are drafted. This happens. You won't hear about it because it's just bad press for the military. But this happens in every branch of every military on the planet. Somebody's gonna freeze, and it takes something to snap them out. And a lot of times, this is when you don't have the repeated training. It's one thing to say you went through your little 5-month course and you took your little pistol and shot some signs. If you don't go through that active training every single time, you don't develop the muscle memory. You don't develop that quick response. Because once that adrenaline starts pumping, it's a whole different ballgame.
So what you're telling me then is these cops, they're completely incompetent because they're not training for this either. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can't expect everybody that wears a badge to do that, just like you shouldn't expect everybody that wears a badge to run around shooting guys that have bandanas on their head.
So then the
next
next time somebody manages to get a bomb on a plane and blows some, 400 people out of the sky, we should give the TSA a pass.
No, but
everybody.
That's actually a perfect example that you bring up, TSA, because how many of them do you think are really that well trained?
Well, we know that they're not, as a matter of fact, and that's an issue. That's an issue, isn't it?
Exactly.
I would think, though, that the professional police departments would be a step above the TSA.
Now,
it's kind of frightening to think that we're handing our security off to the highest bidder.
TSA
even in,
is Homeland Security. You would think they'd be better off. But I'm going to take this a step further and say this is the reason why we should allow civilians to be armed, because when that police officer freezes, who else is going to step up?
Well, see, now I totally agree with the idea that that everybody should be. Well, not everybody. Let me rephrase that. I totally agree that people should be able to carry concealed weapons when they demonstrate the proper responsibility and training.
Qualified citizens.
I wouldn't even go that far.
You just hand one off to everybody. See, now that's where you and I
hand one
disagree.
off to everybody.
That's exactly where the problem begins.
What I'm saying is my problem with any issue where you're putting some kind of regulation in place, and my only problem with any regulation, I'm all for capital punishment. I'm all for whatever right it is you want to have, whatever authority you want to put in place, I'm all for it. My problem is when they do not enforce the laws equally. When you set aside one population that gets one type of treatment and another population that gets a totally different type of treatment, that's when it becomes a problem for me.
Well, which populations are we talking about here?
You can pick any population you want.
Well, in terms of this gun control
In terms of gun control, one of the first things they would try to pass as a reason to regulate would be mental health. And that starts in elementary school when your kid gets labeled ADHD. Something because this kid just not want to sit still in the 3rd grade should not necessarily be something that restricts them 10, 20 years down the line from being able to actively do something that could be of benefit to themselves or their country.
Okay, but on the flip side of that, because I'm not sure I have a problem with the idea that people that have been labeled mentally unstable should maybe not be able to get their hands on firearms. How do you if you don't do that, if you don't...
I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying you have to be careful.
Okay.
Because it does not get fairly enforced. And a perfect example would be law enforcement with drugs, the war on drugs. And this is very old news. But 1 ounce of crack cocaine gets you a longer term than 20 pounds of raw cocaine. That's a problem. And that's targeting a specific population. Because that ounce of crack is going to get sold in the hood. That 20 pounds might be sitting on a table spread out at a Hollywood party. So they want to make sure that they can do it, but they have a means to keep the broke people down. And that's my problem with any type of law enforcement. It always comes down to who has money and who's able to buy their way into being able to commit a crime.
All right, well, that set aside, we have to do a specific segment here which relates to the whole gun control issue, and that's...
Trump in the news.
That's the part that sets it off.
So,
the kazoos,
yeah, the kazoos are definitely it, yeah. So of course, Trump has weighed in on this, and here's an interesting note, by the way. In the last week, polls were done, and presumably in the wake of this most recent school shooting and the fact that Trump has apparently attempted to suggest that he's listening to the public at large, his approval ratings are the highest they've been since he took office, with a 50% approval rating and a 49% disapproval rating. I guess that accounts for the 1% margin of error. So, but this is the highest, this is the most popular he's been in his entire presidency so far. And Trump's solution is to arm teachers. I'm not sure I like this idea for 2 reasons. First of all, educators should be educators. That's it. They shouldn't be police officers. They shouldn't be crowd control. They shouldn't be anything but educators, number 1. Number 2, we've all seen the kind of unruliness that can happen in a classroom. Let's go back to your ADD example earlier. a teacher is too close to too much stress. And you see all of these situations that are taking place on the freeways right now where you have these road rage incidents and that kind of thing. Do we really want to arm a teacher who then has to deal with unruly students and at some point just loses his marbles and shoots a student who's not even armed and not really even a threat, but has just pushed his buttons?
Well, that's a big
I
reason
would
why
actually take
they
it a step further. Even if the student is a threat, there are some people, and this is actually part of the problem you run into with actual police officers, where they may feel unnecessarily threatened. Like a person can just get mouthy and be mouthing off because a lot of people blow their tops. There's absolutely no respect for authority today among youth at all.
Agreed.
So they're going to be mouthing off. They're going to call you everything but a child of God, and you're going to be fearful. And that's not a position I would want to put the teacher or the student in, where a teacher is going to be scared because, some kid is having a bad day. You don't have no idea what anybody's going through at all.
As a matter of fact, didn't that situation occur not that long ago? And I forget where, but there was an off-duty officer who was at home on his front lawn, and it was one of these situations where all these kids were trampling his lawn, and he was having a problem with it, and they started mouthing off to him, and he ultimately ended up he shot into the ground to scare him, but that set off a whole kind of all kinds of backlash. But so while I'm not for arming the teachers, I do think they should have armed officers on the campus. Now, one of the other proposals is one armed officer per 1,000 students.
I wouldn't even try to put a number on it. I think the community should be able to decide that for themselves. I don't think you should be able to have that regulatory control at the federal level, because the federal law, in my mind, is clear. You have the right to bear arms, period. Mm-hmm. I think when you start to try to pass these laws at that level to regulate what happens on the local level, that's where you start to run into problems. You should let the communities decide how it is they want to deal with that issue. There are some communities where they may not need it at all, and there are some communities where they may want more, and I don't think it should be as an instructor, are required to carry a firearm, but I don't think you should be restricted too much from doing it. I think that's something that school would need to decide. Whoever the administration is at that school should need to work out.
So you do think that arming teachers is not a bad idea?
I'm not saying arm teachers. I'm saying don't prevent them from being armed if, in the mind of the administration or whoever it is in the school, they can demonstrate the need and put a proper system in place that community agrees on. It can't just be this one rogue principal's like, we're going to give guns to all the teachers. You've got to have, that's what school boards are for.
We're going to give guns to all the teachers.
Yeah. I think you have to have some real thought about it. And one of the biggest problems with pretty much every major issue in this country is it always comes down to a soundbite, and people are not having real thoughtful dialogue. They're not really talking about the issues. They're talking about
people don't have thoughtful dialogue at all.
And that's a problem.
The most thoughtful dialogue they get is the next time Kim Kardashian does something dumb.
Except on this show. We're very thoughtful in our dialogue.
Todd is completely silent on the whole thing. And you know what's really funny about this is, do you notice the style of hat that he's wearing? Even though it's got some kind of fancy logo, it's basically a military-style cap.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. So Todd, where are you on all of this?
I was just looking at this funny meme. Speaking of Trump, and his cue cards, there's a headline here. Donald Trump uses cue cards to remind him to tell victims of Florida shooting, I hear you.
I don't know that's fair
what
to get on him for that. I mean, what president do you know that has not had prompts?
Have you seen the pictures
Seriously.
of this cue card? This 3x5 card or whatever. It's got gigantic writing. You could read it from space.
Should somebody need to be prompted for that? I mean, honestly, come on. I got to admit,
Okay,
I'm with Todd on that one. That's pretty pathetic.
I'm not saying it's not pathetic, but I don't think he's the only
If
one
the guy
doing
needs
it.
glasses, wear glasses.
I don't think he's the only one doing it. That's all I'm saying. I think if we're going to pick on the president for something, there's much larger issues we could pick on. Much larger issues than the fact he's reading a cue card.
I'm sure that there are much larger issues. It's not that he's reading a cue card. It's what he has to read on the cue card in this particular instance.
I don't see it as a problem. I really don't.
It's like they had to.
And I'll tell you why I don't see it as a problem.
No, it's like they had to put "I hear you" to stop him from saying "I don't care."
No, I don't see it as a problem
Fake
because
news.
in a situation like that, it's just like the same situation with the officer standing at the gate. There's a lot going on, a lot going through your mind, and you can hear this in the way Trump speaks. I don't think he's as stupid as people say he is. I think he might have a little trouble organizing his thoughts. So I know when I speak, I have a tendency to say some things that may or may not get me in trouble. It helps for me to have guidelines, if for no other reason, so I can give it structure. Because it all makes sense in my head, but I know you guys are totally lost.
But yeah, the whole thing with the police officers and arming teachers, it doesn't sound like a great idea on the face, because you hear statistics about cops that do have guns on them at all times, that suicide rates among police officers is extremely high.
I don't think it's because they have guns, though.
Wait,
I think it's
are you
because of
saying
the stress of the
suicide
job.
rates as in the cops killing themselves?
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
that has more to
because
do with
they have
the job.
something.
So-
yes, they do have a very stressful job, but teachers do as well. So yeah, if they're having a kid popping off at them all day, and then they're going home and getting a belt of scotch, and they're like, "Oh Jesus, my life really sucks. I gotta go back to school and listen to little Timmy mouth off at me all day tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and you got this thing in your hand. You're like, I could just make this all over,
Bro,
This time's getting too rough for me.
look.
That's why
My solution for that is
don't-
God. So if you guys need something else to look to, if you got nowhere to turn for that, that's on
Yeah,
you.
I gotta tell you, Todd, you're going off the deep end on this one.
No,
I seriously,
I
that's
totally
what
hear
I
him.
do not see. There's
hear
no
him.
way that I
There's
foresee
facts
a
to
rash
back it up.
of
Yeah,
teachers.
but I don't think
committing
those-
suicide as soon as they get armed. I don't see that happening. I'm more
no,
concerned
actually-
about them shooting little Timmy in the classroom because they're like, oh God, I don't want to listen to you anymore. Poof.
That
That's
is
more
right.
likely to
no,
happen
but
than he's
Joe,
going to
that's the
shoot
opposite
himself.
side of the same coin. This is the same kind of thing you see happen in all kinds of other behavior. People will actually get frustrated with themselves because they are not reaching somebody, not even because they can't do it. It's because this person just can't be reached.
Listen. I know from me personally,
Those are
when
opposite
you are
sides
having a
of the same
conversation and
coin.
I can't get you to see my point, I'm more likely to kill you than kill me.
But that's you. Somebody else might be like, because not everyone wants to commit murder. It's easy to take yourself out.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting.
It has a lot to do with how people are brought up. Because some people are brought up aggressively. Some people are brought up more
I don't
nurturing.
think of myself as an aggressive person. I'm just not ready
Joe,
to check out.
I'm going to let you know right now, you're an aggressive person. Okay? You don't have to think you are or not. Okay? You're about 3 steps below Trump on the ego table.
Oh,
I'm just letting you know.
wow,
It's
okay.
like Trump. Okay, maybe 1 step. Joe.
All right, just for
Then you
just-
go down 4
just for
more
my
and you'll
own
get to
edific-
me.
Just for my own. I was going to say on my own edification. Where do you fall on this scale?
I'm about 4 steps below you.
four. Really?
steps
that's
below
pretty,
you.
That's pretty generous.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. Todd is like completely gone silent again.
Yeah, Todd's at the bottom of that table.
Well,
He's that teacher sitting at home like, oh, poor Timmy. With the bottle of
Don't
scotch.
do marijuana. Drugs are bad.
Yeah, I don't know. These numbers are exactly, edifying my point. There's some stats here saying 1 suicide's too many, yada, yada, yada. In 2016, 108 officers took their own lives. That's a 14% decrease from the year
That's
from
because they're
2012.
now look at the rate of officer involved uses of force where they shot somebody and see that number went up really. See, so what's happening is they're not shooting themselves, they're shooting the other people.
It does say here that there was
An increase.
a 61% increase in law enforcement officers shot and killed in 2016 versus 2015. So that's in
Yeah,
the line of
80% of
duty
that's probably just
being
Chicago.
straight up murdered.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's also adding to the stress of being a police officer in general. But anyway, I'd say the whole thing with being a cop is the same with being any other job. You're a person, and I'm sure in your everyday life, you run into plenty of people that are, quote, terrible at their job.
yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
You call the
I would
cable
say
company,
the
and you're
majority
like,
of people, while
why
they may even
do
be
I
good
have-
intentioned, are terrible at their job.
Yeah, even if they want to be good, they're just not.
And the funny thing is, the ones that think they're the best at it, that are actually pretty bad.
So
Looking at you, Todd.
Well, all I'm saying is
Then-
imagine the precedent that this sets. Okay, this cop did not engage the suspect. Didn't even attempt to.
I'm not jumping
one
on that
thing
bandwagon.
Listen,
I
no,
would ask on top is that protocol? They say cops are supposed to wait for backup. Are you supposed to go into a situation like that alone?
I think
Generally,
under the
you're
circumstances, when you know that you have all of these students, young children
But
whose
I'm sure
lives are in
there's
imminent
not.
danger.
Rules of the law they're rules of conduct that say you're supposed to have backup for these. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I'm gonna say, and maybe you can make the argument that it's easy for me to say that because A, I'm not a cop, and B, I wasn't in that situation.
And
but
C, you're the type of person that would do that.
what, run in
Not
there?
everybody is that type of person.
Yeah, I would. You're right. I would run in there, but see, that's the thing.
Right in there with that
That's why
stapler.
the guys writing the tickets aren't armed.
But see, this goes back to the situation where Todd has gone on record as saying he's he's very pro more gun control, and I'm completely the opposite on that. And by the way,
I'm even more opposite than you.
I have kids in the school system, and I don't want to see my kids get shot either, but I also don't want my right to own a weapon taken away. But here's the thing about that, all right? If I can't count, and you made this point last time we talked about gun control, if I can't count on the cops to protect me when somebody threatens me with a gun because
can't.
they're
You
afraid,
absolutely
then
cannot.
I want the right to do it myself.
But Joe, this is the other part of my point. The cops can't do anything until somebody gets hurt.
Anything?
That's right.
They can't with an accent now.
Anything at all.
They can't do a thing until somebody gets hurt, which is why I believe it is necessary for
think that
people to be able to
headband's too
defend themselves.
Okay.
It is kind of snarky.
Loosen up that headband a little bit.
I'm off in circulation.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we've got to get out of here on this show. It's been it's actually been a really
We could go
enjoyable
forever
discussion.
on this
I know
one,
we
man.
could for sure.
And you would both be wrong. One day you'll come to the light.
Just agree with me.
Yes. See? Todd's getting in.
Huh. All right. Well, anyway,
We're gonna convert
Oh,
you,
know,
Todd.
and you know what? Come to think of it, this ended up on the floor, and we're supposed to read this before we get on out of here because we got to do this little thing about the Malibu Film Festival's film charities, events, and special programs continue to evolve in support of the arts in your community, and you can help by becoming a sponsor of the Malibu Film Festival. Donate at MalibuFilmFestival.com/donate. That's MalibuFilmFestival.com/donate. You know, they're one of our sponsors, and we gotta throw them a nod.
We love our sponsors.
Yeah, we do. We so totally do. Speaking of which, did you want to give a quick shout out to something, Todd?
No.
No? Didn't you want to say something about some food?
No, we'll do that some
We'll do that some other time.
That's
All right.
its own segment, Joe.
All right. Well, in that case, for the local boys, I am Joe Carbonetta. This has been Around Midnight. Mixified Media Solutions is the company through which Around Midnight is produced. And you can give them a call. Todd, what's the number?
Oh, jeez. 951-356-6882.
That's a good one, Todd.
I keep telling you guys we need to pre-record this crap.
Yeah, we really do. All right. Anyway, we're out of here.
And what's the web address? Chevelle.
Oh,
Pop
wait,
quiz.
what was the question?
Mixified.com.
Pop
What
quiz,
do you
hot
say?
shot.
Yeah.
Mixified on all your social medias at Mixified.
Mixified. If you've got media issues, Mixified's got your solution. Give them a call. Check them out on the website.
After this one, I'm not so sure.
Hey, we're just around midnight. Anyway, we'll catch you guys next time. Around Midnight is a production of Mixified Media Solutions. Mixified is a full-service multimedia production company. From boardroom to broadcast, whatever your production needs, Mixified is your solution. Go to Mixified.com, that's MIXAFIED, or call 951-356-6882. Mixified Media Solutions.